You are listening to The World as I See It podcast. 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 As I See It.
Hello, my awesome listeners, and welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 48. So, today, we're diving into a topic that I feel is going to be very eye-opening. Because we're talking all about the, things that you take for granted. The everyday visual shortcuts. Things like that. And it's the things that you take for granted without realizing how much, those glances using your eyes, it actually saves, time. So when you have sight, your world is absolutely full of instant, effortless shortcuts that you don't ever have to spend a second thinking about. Think about a mirror. Remember how I said y'all can just glance at yourselves in the mirror like every single day, maybe multiple times a day? We'll use this for example. For you, a sighted person, a mirror is a completely passive, automatic tool. You'll catch a quick glimpse of yourself as you walk down the hall. Check your hair. Make sure that there's nothing on your face. Or you see how much your outfit coordinates before walking out the front door. It literally takes less than half a second. But when you can't, like me, rely on a mirror, presentation becomes an intentional, highly organized, multi-step process. So it means laying out your clothing in a specific, memorized order, feeling the weight and texture of fabrics to make sure they match, using accessible smartphone technology labels to double check colors. It turns an instant visual glance of, oh, I want to wear this and I want to wear this. I want to wear the black shirt and I want to wear these pants with it. And I want to wear these shoes with it. You can just glance in your closet and go, oh, here's this shirt, here's the... For me, it's a mindful routine. I have to have my closet set up in such a way that I know where everything is. Another massive thing that you sighted people take for granted is the ability to just glance at something to grab quick information. So, if a sheet of paper is sitting on the desk and you can look down, scan the headline or a sentence and immediately know exactly what it is about in a split second. And if they're cooking in the kitchen or grabbing something out of, the fridge, they can glance at the ingredient list or the front of the box to know exactly what item they are holding. For me, there is absolutely no such thing as quick glance. Okay? Like, there is no such thing as, oh, I'm going to glance at it. No. That's not a thing, okay? If I want to read a piece of paper, check an expiration date, or identify a label, I have to completely intentionally be, use technology. And that's why I'm so grateful for the technology that I do have. Like I said, if there's something that's in the wrong place, or there's something, that is round and there's jars that feel the same, I can't just glance at it. It's a process. Now, if I put labels on it before, it's way less stressful. But it depends on what label that I use. A lot of the times I will use like my phone or my Meta Ray-Bans, and I will use an app to read the label on the box or whatever it may be. But I can't just glance. I have to pick up my phone, unlock it, find what app I want to use, hold the camera steadily over the item, and wait for it to read the text out loud or translate the data for me. Whereas what takes a sighted person half a second takes me a multi-step routine. Now, it's not a barrier that's going to stop me from getting things done, but it definitely changes, the pace of your day and requires you to always be thinking 3 steps ahead. And then, of course, there is the entire massive realm of social communication and nonverbal cues. So, here's a fun fact. Over 50% of human interaction is entirely nonverbal. And you sighted people navigate it without a second thought. That's one of the hardest things, like I said, for me about being blind, which I have talked about, is the social nonverbal communication. Because when you can't see, it's hard. Now, when you can see, you can automatically catch a person sitting there, tilting their head in confusion. A quick shrug of the shoulders, a subtle nod from across a noisy room. And, you can follow the conversation. You know that they're listening whenever they nod, or you can tell how they're feeling by the facial expressions on their face. But when you have a visual impairment, you miss out on the entire, context. You're left relying completely on a person's tone of voice, which it doesn't always tell the whole story. If someone is using, humor, or they're making a facial expression that contradicts their words, you have to find alternative ways to gather that information, like paying incredibly close attention to just micro changes in the environment. And I feel like that's why some sighted people are so worried about how to interact with me. Because, you could make it socially awkward if you don't say anything to me. Or you could just walk up and be like, hey, it's so-and-so. What's your name? I'm going to shake your hands. My hand's out for you to shake. Things like that. If I meet you for the first time, you don't have to make it super awkward. So it really highlights how many everyday shortcuts rely on sight, from reading a label to reading a room. Navigating spaces without those shortcuts, it isn't impossible by any means. But it does require a completely different level of awareness, adaptability, and intentional focus every single day. And I do want to say this. Like I said, I love the technology that I have. I'm just giving you the perspective on how, even though it may take me longer to do stuff, I'm still going to do it. I have learned all these ways to do things that y'all can do, maybe a little faster than I can. But I can still do those things. It just may take me a little longer. And I may do it a different way than you do. And that's okay. And I just want you to think about the simple act of navigating through a crowded hallway at a school or walking down a busy city sidewalk. So you can see an obstacle 40 feet away, whether it's a backpack left on the floor or something like that. And, you know, it's one of those things, like, if you don't tell me that you're there, navigating that exact same space requires a constant stream of active problem solving and focus. A lot of people don't know how to feel about my cane. Sometimes they don't know what to think, and it's just one of those things, like, if you're in front of me and you need me to go around you, say, hey, I'm right here, or hey, I'm on your left. Or maybe you could be like, hey, I'm on your left, you can walk to the right to get around. Things like that. Because my white cane is an incredible tool, and it only tells me what's directly in front of my feet without, whereas you can see something very far away. So, that's just one of those things that I feel y'all can use. Also, like, environmental signage. When you walk into a new building, you could look up at the walls to find, the directional signs pointing you towards main office or whatever it may be. If there's no braille signs, I use technology, like I say. So when I walk into a brand new space, I have to rely on a combination of, if I've been there, or I'll pre-plan. And I'll ask for verbal descriptions from the people around me, or I'll search for tactile clues, and things like that. I feel like, and I also feel like another major area where these visual shortcuts dominate is the digital world. Software developers and graphic designers, they build websites and smartphone apps with the assumption that users will navigate them completely visually, when a lot of the times, I'll say sometimes that simply isn't true. A sighted person, they can open an app and instantly know the layout, see the different icons and things like that. Whereas, their eyes, they dart across the screen. Whereas for me, when I open that same app using my screen reader, which I will say I'm very, very good at using my screen reader software, so I'm very, very fast at picking up a new app. But the technology will read through the entire screen elements, and that kind of thing. And here's another thing. If the app developer didn't properly label the digital buttons behind the scenes, then my screen reader will literally just announce button, which drives me crazy. But it's just one of those things. Even something basic as checking the weather outside is completely visual for most people. You could literally look out the window to see if the sky is gray. Look at a digital radar map on your phone or check a graphic icon. Now, I will say I can literally ask one of my technologies, what's the weather? Or I could step outside and go, it feels cloudy. Or whatever it may be. But with all that being said, I just wanted to show you what things that y'all take for granted, So maybe the next time you're doing one of those things, maybe stop and think. And it is a reminder that living without vision, it doesn't mean you aren't restricted from accessing the world. But it does mean that you have to be intentional. And that's why I'm so organized. That is one of the reasons why, like, even on my phone apps, organized. Because I have to be. I have to be so intentional about how I gather my data. I can't afford to, just give up, because the world isn't designed to support, the world was not built with accessibility in mind. So, I can't give up because I don't have sight. And I will say this. I love the challenge of adapting and finding my own unique paths through these obstacles. But I think it's incredibly eye-opening for you sighted people to just pause and realize just how effortless their daily routines are because of their vision. If you are a sighted listener, I would love for you to pay attention to how many times today you rely on a quick glance to make a decision, and think about how you would handle that task differently. Now, just because I point all this out, it doesn't mean that you have to help me every single time. It doesn't mean you automatically have to jump in and go, oh, let me help you. This will be way faster if I do it. You may be right, but I want to be independent, even if it takes me a little longer. Because I want that confidence of being independent. Because I will live on my own someday. So I want that independence, even if it takes me a little longer, and even if I do it differently. I've come up with efficient ways to do things, and it's okay if it takes me longer to do something. So, let me know your thoughts down in the comments on YouTube, or you can send me an email at theworldasiseeitpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for episode 48. Until next week, stay curious and keep listening.
You've been listening to the World as I See It podcast.